Hello, and welcome to the Go Mode Link to the Past Randomizer Podcast Mentor Tournament of 2020. I am SEJay. I'm joined by WGarrison. We're watching an open race today between Kaesden and Windfox. How are you doing, Garrison?
I'm doing great, and I am extremely excited about this 4-1 race between Kaesden and Windfox. I know that you were their mentor for 2 weeks, each of them. Is there anything about these two runners that you would like to predict or share for this race?
Well, Kaesden has been doing, or was doing, NMG runs, and I think that really helped his execution increase rapidly. Windfox has been playing for a little bit. I've known him a little bit longer. Also has really good execution. Honestly, this week is a mentorless week, so nobody in the background kind of guiding them. It's going to come down to who has taken the most out of all of these weeks of mentor tournament help and who is going to apply the right call to their routing. I think execution-wise, they're about on par, so we're in for a good one.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and this is definitely the culmination week of all of the help that you've got from the mentors. Week 6, no mentor. I think with the latter experience that both of these players have, I think they'll be perfectly fine without a mentor. Yeah, it looks like we are off, and they are starting in different places.
You know, we got a magic powder pickup from Link's house while Windfox is doing Sanctuary Start. I, in fact, talked to both of them, and Kaesden, very big fan of the Uncle Start, where Windfox is more comfortable with this Sanctuary Start, where you can do a couple of different routing options. If you find bombs, it's a little bit quicker, but if you don't find bombs, you can see Windfox heading up north here. You can check tree poles, you can check bush crabs, you can check lumberjack along the way. A pretty good start option either way.
I have recently been practicing the Uncle route myself a bit, hoping for a weapon that maybe you could just go straight into the front of escape from there. The one thing I do miss that Windfox is able to do, taking the Sanctuary route, is picking up the bush crab for another chance to get bombs.
Yeah, I like the bush crab, and you can also see Windfox will probably... Well, we'll see if it happens. You can also try to kill 4 enemies here to check the tier 2 or tier 3 pole on the bush if you don't find bombs up to this point.
So we got a hook shot in Lost Woods already. Doesn't quite open anything up yet, but it's nice for early movement when you don't have boots. There are a lot of things that you can latch onto to move much faster than just normal walking.
And you can see Kaesden, perhaps knowing that Windfox likes to do this lumberjack route, went and is following kind of in the footsteps. Usually if you start with the Uncle route, you don't go up to this lumberjack check. So Kaesden may know Windfox likes to do this, doesn't want to miss out on any information. I didn't see if we saw anything on the lumberjack there, but we might have.
I don't remember exactly what was on lumberjack, but it wasn't anything interesting. I do know that.
No, it is a glove. I'm looking back at it right now on my replay. It is, whether it's our Titan's Mitts or our Power Glove, it is a glove. So, good move by Kaesden to go and check that. Doesn't miss out on information, and that's some really big information to have. You're going to need that glove.
Yeah, good in going back and checking that, because I thought I saw something differently.
Alright, we're getting a view of Windfox here, just going through the Kakariko village. Kaesden will be right behind. Remember, Kaesden started that Uncle route, so they're going to be a little bit behind into the village here. But both runners, pretty much the same setup. No bombs. Have enough money to buy some bombs, though. So we'll see if Kaesden opts to go into Blind's Hut, or maybe Kakariko. Well, I know Kaesden likes to do this, thinks it's a bit of a safer play to jump in the well, because if you have to double dip it, it's a little bit faster than going to the basement.
Yeah, I like the well play when you don't have bombs. Oh, and a ton of money and bombos in the well. So Kaesden now over 600 rupees, should have enough rupees to buy anything necessary in the early game, including those bombs.
Yeah, we do see both the runners finding plenty of money in Kakariko. Could open up a early Zora check if they want to fake flipper, if they find flippers or a glove to get over there. I do think when you find glove on Lumberjack, as we find a mirror in Chicken House, I'm thinking early Aga once I have access. I know I'm going to have to do it, so I might as well do Aga so that I have Dark World access that way.
Yeah, and with gloves on Lumberjack, you know it's nearly guaranteed that those gloves are going to be required. It would be really unusual for Ice Palace, Meyer, and Turtle Rock to all be pendants.
Yeah, so as we go back, we're going to see Kaesden jump back down to check the back of the well, finish up Kakariko, Windfox finishing up the well as well. I mean, we did find Bombos and Mir and Book in the village. Back of the well had the book, so a couple of options. You could go and check out Desert. Can't beat it yet because we need a glove and a fire source, and potentially the boots.
So I'm looking at that mirror and hookshot, and even with knowing that gloves are on Lumberjack, I wonder how soon we're going to end up with mountain access and opening up a ton of juicy items with the with hookshot and mirror. Looks like Windfox is going to be getting out of Kakariko first, which makes sense given he was the one that started with the Sanctuary route, so he hasn't done the Uncle route yet. Oh, and Lamp is in the library, so much more likely for early boots, especially with it looking like it's probably even aggro required just to get into the Dark World.
Yeah, and we do have a red crystal on Eastern and a pendant on Tower of Hera. You know, I do think Kaesden has caught up a little bit here. That well play does speed you up a little bit more. I think that Uncle play that he has done has definitely not taken as much time as he is currently behind Windfox, if that makes sense. So I do think Kaesden has caught up a little bit here, which is good for him. But yeah, it's all a matter of from here, where do you go? Because a lot of options. Nothing's really wide open yet. You really want to find those boots since you know they're on the way.
And both runners choosing to do a race game blind, which kind of makes sense given that they don't have a lot of items on hand that moves them towards clearing Aga or getting into the Dark World.
Yeah, I've seen this a lot more recently where if you feel like Kakariko wasn't very exciting, you do race game blind. I personally, with a mirror and a book and all of the fancy stuff we just found, probably would have checked and just moved on. But, you know, these runners taking the gamble. They're both taking the same gamble, so neither one gain or loses time. Kaesden opting to not check the dam, and I like this play with the book.
Yeah, my understanding is that he's doing Mini Moldarm Cave first so that he can go from the dam into Desert with that book, which makes perfect sense. And Hookshot, such a great item for clearing out these Mini Moldorms in open. It can be challenging clearing out Mini Moldorms without a sword, but Hookshot makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, we got some money and some bombs, more bombs, and a heart piece. So nothing really exciting in those 5 chests in Mini Moldorm Cave today.
So if Aga is going to be required to get into Dark World, we are still looking for boots. At least a sword, maybe a second sword, and maybe cape. So a lot of items still out here. Kaesden going all the way to Ice Rod Cave, and with there being so few checks left and so many items out there, it makes sense. Probably going to save and quit and do Dam and Desert right afterwards.
Yeah, I think in this scenario, the only time you really skip Ice Rod Cave is if you have Flute. There's so many options, and it's only $20. But yeah, I think we're going to see Kaesden go over to the desert area. It'll be interesting if Windfox follows suit, or if Windfox chooses to do, say, Escape, because you can stun the guards with the hook shot and use the bombs. Also can check out the eastern area, so we're about to see if there's a split in the path here, or if they follow each other just for a little bit longer. And it does look like there's a split.
We'll see if Windfox just does Uncle or decides to use that hook shot to do the bomb escape, as you were saying.
You know, I'm a fan of, if you're coming to Uncle and you're not doing Uncle route, you're probably doing all of Escape, or at least the front of Escape, as we see a very nice hook dash for Kaesden. If you use the hook shot at the right time on that block in the dam, you can actually kind of teleport through it and open the chest, and you only have to do one dam trip. That saves some time. I didn't catch if Windfox was able to pull that off as well or not.
The one thing, though, is with this seed essentially screaming Aga, and knowing that you have to get at least a sword to be able to do Aga 1, would it make more sense to wait until you get that sword before you do Front of Escape?
It depends on your comfort level. There's not a lot of options out there that, other than Escape, you could do Eastern area, I suppose, but you know, you're kind of limited here with what your options are, and there's not a guarantee that Aga is early. Again, those gloves can be the Titan's mitts. We can find the other set of gloves and the hammer and the moon pearl all in other areas, and his chat is telling me that Windfox did a mirror delete, not the hook dash, so also a fun little trick to know. We do find a map in the front of Escape, so not what you want to see there.
It's very surprising that there are so many items out there and that are required to get any access to Dark World and so few checks left. This is making me wonder if there is going to be a flute or a set of gloves easily available to end up going to the mountain just to be able to pull the 7 or 8 items out of the east side.
Yeah, flute is more likely. For gloves to be a thing, we'd also need the boots to grab that lamp. I would not be surprised to see a flute here. I also would not be surprised to see Flipper here, potentially, as Kaesden getting stuck a little bit in the quicksand there as Windfox pulls out even more money. My goodness, this seed has been full of money. And there is our Moon Pearl. You know, it's tough to call because there's a lot of different ways where the game can lead you to some extra items.
And a small key on the torch, so the rest of Desert is boots locked, which is just another thing in the list that's stuck behind boots. So are we going to find boots in Eastern? Are we going to find something that gets us to the mountain and boots are up there, or flippers? It's kind of a where are the boots game right now.
Yeah, as we see, the front of Escape is absolutely nothing. Kaesden making a play over to Eastern, which is going to be beneficial. You know, we could still find the Fire Rod, which would put the rest of Escape into logic, as well as maybe in a bow and Fire Rod, which could make Eastern possible. We're just going to have to see, but I do feel like whatever we're going to find is going to be over here, where Kaesden is at.
All right, Sahasrara, what are you hiding in your closet? And both players making their way here at about the same time, so... And there's the glove! and a Cane of Samaria, which is nice to find, but doesn't help us right now. So now we're really kind of stuck behind boots. So, Kaesden doing a save and quit, probably going to escape then.
I like this play by Kaesden. Glove also does unlock Zora, and with the Moon Pearl, I would not be surprised to see Kaesden try to attempt a water walk at some point to try to get all of that Zora area cleared up. It does look like Kaesden is opting to go up to the mountain. Interesting choice when we know that the boots are what lock our lamps to go do that.
Yeah, that is very interesting, but there are a ton of checks up there. But, I mean, he is foregoing the water walk with all of the different water checks and Zora in logic with the money. He is foregoing back of escape, which is easily accessible now with those gloves. And he's foregoing the front of escape as well, which we know is nothing, but he does not know that yet. So very interesting choice for him to go up the mountain right now.
Yeah, we're seeing Windfox dive Eastern, which I would think is the more standard play. Possibly not as comfortable. Kaesden is very comfortable in dark rooms, as you can see him navigating through the dark rooms with just the hook shot. That's not an easy task to do. It's very easy to get lost in the dark cave, and Kaesden coming out beautifully done. You know, maybe Kaesden hoping that by sequence breaking can come back to Eastern with a bow, does flying blue mail. I'm a bigger fan of just checking Eastern because you know in logic somewhere there's probably boots.
Well, but those in logic boots might actually still just be behind Flute in the mountain.
That's also a possibility.
These seeds can get really wily that way.
I think regardless, I'm agreeing a little bit with chat here. I would at least check the back of escape before going up the mountain. Checking the back of escape doesn't really lose you any time. Yeah, you're going to probably end up not doing Dark Cross then, but Kaesden hasn't done the front of escape, so could loop in Dark Cross with that. I just am concerned at that point. I don't want to miss those 3 chests back there, so if that is the Flute, that could be really big for Windfox. Likewise, if we find the boots up here, we know that the Flute has to be somewhere.
So Ether Tablet, even though we can't collect it, we can see that it's empty, just a heart piece. And as far as Windfox has checked in Eastern, he's not found anything there either. This seed is hiding everything.
Yeah, Windfox now doing a dark room in Eastern, I believe. Yep, there's the 2 little anti-fairies. Again, this is out of logic. You would need the lamp, so you know that this can't be the boots. I don't know, it's a tough call here. I really am feeling that the back of escape is going to have something for us.
And the big key in Hera is in the basement. So Kaesden's only way to continue is to do this Hera pot, because he doesn't have the lamp, which we think that he should have before coming up here. So top of Hera, currently they're doubly out of logic.
Yeah, and I mean, try Hera pot, that's fine. I think Kaesden should get out of Hera. You don't have a fire source to get up there. Even if you Hera pot, you can't beat Moldorm. You don't have a sword or a hammer. There's nothing other than that one chest upstairs that you can do. So I like this, that Kaesden is saying, you know what, I tried Hera pot, it didn't work, I'm not going to stay here forever. And moving on to the right side of the mountain. As we see Windfox save and quit out of Eastern, we'll see where he heads next. To Sanctuary, we'll see if we get that escape play.
So what? The only things that we have left in logic, we have the back of escape and we have King Zora.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for people to fall into a false kind of sense of security. The game does not logically give you money for Zora. It assumes that you can have 500 rupees at any point. So even though you're getting a lot of money early, as we find the hammer in the back of, and the bow.
Hammer and bow in the back of Escape, which maybe if Kaesden does back of Escape right after Mountain, it could save him a lot of time when doing Eastern, where he can clear it all in one go. Actually, with the hammer, he can do Pod and Eastern all in one go because he has Mirror too.
Yeah, if Kaesden is comfortable with the Pod Dark Rooms, that could be really big. You know, he does have that huge advantage of the Moon Pearl, but Windfox is heading over to Desert now to grab that. You're going to have full Dark World access, so the boots now are anywhere in the world, basically, because now that we have Dark World access, a ton of other things can be unlocked, and the boots are going to be somewhere to get us the Titan's Mitts eventually, but doesn't necessarily mean they're anywhere near.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing with the lamp, despite the fact that there are plenty of areas and dungeons that you would want to wait until you have lamp to do, just for the comfort of being able to see, logically they don't lock a whole lot. I mean, right now they do logically lock the mountain depending on flute location, but who knows? Maybe flute is available and boots could really just be anywhere.
Yeah, Kaesden saving, quitting here. I can't imagine many other choices other than the back of Escape, but it looks like he might be doing front of Escape, or he might be going over to Eastern. That's not good for him.
Oh, yeah, that's unfortunate timing. And, I mean, maybe he's just not thinking of it. Now that he's done Uncle Route, maybe he's just not thinking about Escape in open. Because some of the other modes of this game, such as Casual Boots and Ambrosia, have a standard beginning or standard start, meaning you've done all of Escape at this point. It can be easy to forget sometimes that they're not done in open and you still have to get there.
Yeah, Windfox grabbing his Moon Pearl now. Windfox is going to take a bit of an advantage here. Now has pretty much full Dark World access. Everything is open. Where would you go first in this scenario?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the question of where do I go first once you have Dark World access, specifically with Gloves and Hammer, which gives you the most Dark World access, I think I answer this question wrong a lot of the time. One of the big things we need to know, though, let's see if we get a map check from Windfox. Knowing, yes, we do. So we have Pendant Mire, Pendant Thievestown, red crystal in Skullwoods, and everything else looks like crystals. So I would say with the equipment that we have, Pod being a crystal, Eastern being a crystal, and having the bow and hammer, I kind of like heading over to that area.
Yeah, I think without a fire rod, a lot of people are going to be scared of the dark pod rooms, but you got to remember these runners are both 4 and 1, so they're on a bit of the upper end of the racers we've seen in this mentor tournament. I like the play of Hype Cave here. You know, you've got 5 items in Hype Cave. I personally go Hype Cave over to Stumpy to dig game, and then maybe go back to Village. Thievestown being a pendant is not something you want to see here, because you really want to do Thievestown early. There's 4 items there. You got your hammer, and there's our boots.
So, boots. Unlocking Lamp, which then puts Mountain in logic, which gives Windfox an absurd number of choices. And it really is hard to say right now what is the right choice and what is the wrong choice. And this is one of the crucial points in the game. Like, making this decision is the hard part of the game, and where you gain or lose a lot of time over the course of the seed. So we'll see how both players choose to do it. I don't know what the right answer is.
This is a beautiful play by Windfox. We'll see if he follows through on all of it. But you the lamp was on library, if I remember correctly. So you can check all of these checks and then just mirror and get your lamp, then go back to pod, and you're totally safe.
Ironically, too, Windfox discovering a shovel at Stumpy as he's right here. You can't get any better than that.
Yeah, you pick that up and you're like, I have the mirror. This is convenient. This never happens as you pull a bug net and you don't really need it anyway.
That's the vanilla location for shovel, if I'm not mistaken.
That's absolutely amazing. We do look like we're finally seeing Kaesden going to do that back of escape check. So we kind of have to realize the difference here is Kaesden has done pretty much the whole mountain, including some of the checks in Hera. Couldn't beat the whole thing of Hera. We'll see if Kaesden chooses to go Village of Outcasts first or Hype Cave. We know that Hype Cave is a very good call to make, because that's where you can get your boots and you can make a really pretty route over to Lamp. We'll see what Kaesden does with this knowledge. As Windfox continues to do the dig game, we'll see if we dig anything fun out of the ground.
A sword! And it's funny, I was waiting to see what he was going to dig up before making the comment of Open being a very classic in not giving you swords until really late. Well, glad I didn't make that comment first.
Yeah, and we see Windfox here. Definitely going to grab that lamp with the sword. I would expect Windfox to run right over to Pod and Eastern. You have everything to beat them. Kaesden looks like also hopefully going to Hype Cave and not up to Pod, but we'll have to see.
We are now one more sword or a cape away from having the Titan's mitts logically available as well.
Yeah, that would not surprise me that as soon as Aga is available, they just book it and go do Aga. You know you need to do it, so you might as well get it over with. You can also use the Dark World rules that kind of change when you go into Aga to your advantage, especially with Big Bomb is the most helpful advantage, which I don't know if we'll see here, but Skullwoods and Eastern.
Windfox is going to check Magic Bat right now, too, while kind of routing the rest of the Light World Kakariko checks in. Just a heart piece. And Kaesden just using the book to check out what's on Bombo's tablet. So he'll have full knowledge of everything that's behind book except for the pedestal, which may be checked later on. And
you know, I don't want to be guilty for this at the end. I'll have to ask Kaesden if he checked that Bombo's tablet because of a stream. I was streaming earlier and he was in my chat, and I had a game where I last checked Bombo's tablet and had my red cane. So, wonder if that is weighing on his mind at all, because he sure was laughing at me a lot.
One of the interesting things, Kaesden and Windfox are both kind of rando buddies that do end up racing against each other a lot. So SEJay had mentioned it earlier, where Kaesden may have done some routing specifically to Lumberjack, because he knows the way that Windfox plays and knows that Lumberjack would have been checked. And SEJay as well, also kind of being part of that crew a lot of times.
Yeah, we like to do our evening races. It's a lot of fun. Have yet to Oh no, I have beaten both of them in a race. I was going to say I haven't beaten both of them. There was one time that I was able to get the lead over both of them in one race, but usually these guys are pretty good. Usually one of them beats me in a race.
And I do know a lot of times these runners like to set up practice races in the Go Mode Podcast Discord. So if you guys like what you're seeing here, definitely give this channel a follow. And if you want, join us at the Go Mode Podcast Discord. Use exclamation Discord to get the information. There's a lot of information about for new players for A Link to the Past randomizer. A lot of players like Kaesden and Windfox organize races there, and we also have a bi-weekly podcast that gives you all of the updated news for A Link to the Past randomizer.
As we continue watching these two race, Windfox surprisingly not heading over to Palace of Darkness. Even with that hammer, bow, sword, lamp, you have everything you kind of need there.
Yeah, and it's not just one crystal over there, but two, because you finish out Eastern while you're there at the same time. There's not much left to improve the route over there, other than potentially holding off for Flute to make it easier to get there.
We are seeing a save and quit from Kaesden, so we'll see if he heads over to that direction as we find nothing in Graveyard Ledge.
For the amount of time that Kaesden had spent up on the mountain doing checks and kind of going out of the way for Bombo's tablet, he's really made up a lot of time against Windfox, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I personally like this route by Kaesden more. It's also been put out in chat that you can go Graveyard, Catfish, Pod, Eastern, which Windfox is looking like what he's doing. But you can also just go Pod into Eastern first. And those are crystals that you have to do no matter what. And I'm a big fan of always doing the things that you have to do no matter what first. With the mirror, Pod is not nearly as bad. Obviously, it'd be nice to have a Master Sword or a Tempered Sword or something like that, but I do like the play of rushing over to Palace of Darkness here.
So, chat bringing up a good point. With the way that Windfox was routing from King's Tomb, if he wanted to continue on to Catfish, he would have had to do what's called a kern jump, which is a very interesting timing on jumping off of a cliff into a river with a bomb and using that bomb to push you into a screen transition to activate fake flippers. That jump is as difficult as it sounds, so I'm not surprised that Windfox decided that he was not going to attempt the kern jump.
Yeah, you can also set it up since they have the boots in Skullwoods area, but obviously if you're not in Skullwoods area, you don't want to run all the way over there to set it up.
It's interesting that neither runner did decide to do any of the fake flipper checks. I guess with the opening of Dark World, there's just too many other juicy things to do.
Well, and with the bow, both of these runners probably know the splash deletion glitch. You can check Catfish and splash delete into the Waterfall Fairy Cave and some of the other places there too. So, we do see both of our runners now in Palace of Darkness. Kaesden slightly ahead, but remember, Windfox has checked a lot more checks in the lower overworld. Kaesden has checked a lot of checks up on the mountain. So, we'll see if we find anything here in Palace of Darkness, because we're still looking for a way to beat Aga so that we can get those Titan Smiths.
And looking at other things that we might still need, it looks like we will need both rods still, potentially a medallion for whatever Turtle Rock is. We need a cape or another sword to be able to get the mitts, and it looks like Flippers is needed for Swamp Palace, but it looks like Flute is the one that we might end up not finding at all today.
Yeah, chat pointing out that Windfox did skip that big key chest. It was just a shield, but something that's going to weigh on his mind. I would not be surprised to see him go back and check that before he heads out of this dungeon. Ooh, and it looks like we might see something fancy from Windfox here. So what you just saw there was what's called extended auto stairs or pog clip. There's a couple of different names for it. But if you use the Canis of the Maria and the boots in a certain way, you can actually dash up above those orange pegs that keep you out of the upper area. And it's a way to, though somewhat unique in when you need to use it, it can help you get through Palace of Darkness a little bit quicker.
And we have Flippers in pod in the basement dark room, which just gives us logical access to all of the checks that we were thinking to logic break anyway, and now gives us official access to Ice Palace. Or no, we still need the mitts for Ice Palace.
Kaesden needing to be a little bit careful here, down to 1 heart. Yeah, I'm looking Titan's Mitts for Ice Palace. That's where I would go. You have Bombos. Once you have Titan's Mitts, it's a crystal you have to do. With Samaria, you can use Icebreaker. So I would pretty heavily emphasize going to Ice Palace once I found those or the ability to get the mitts off of Lumberjack.
But one place that did open up that we might find the ability to get mitts in is Swamp Palace. We have the flippers, we have the hammer, we have the mirror, we have the hook shot. We can do all of Swamp Palace right now.
Yeah, I get a feeling we're going to see the runners following each other's footsteps here for a little bit. I think we're going to see Palace of Darkness into Eastern Palace, and then I think you're right. I think it's a very smart move to do Swamp Palace next. The only way I would deviate that is if you find Fire Rod along the way, because then if you do Skull Woods first, you could do Big Bomb after Swamp Palace. And as we see Kaesden doing the cutscene here and Windfox following behind, quick shout out to our Restreamer Laoria and our tracker OmegAtoisk. Both of them helping out a lot here. Garrison and I get to just sit up here and chat, but they're doing all of the hard work of actually putting this on for you. We're just talking our butts off up here. So thanks to them. Give them a thank you. Give them a follow and all of the good things.
And again, these runners, they are running for 4 and 1. They're trying to solidify their entry into the Gold Sword bracket for the final portion of this tournament. A win will definitely put them in. A loss makes it more questionable. But they are running really strong right now, and absolutely give our runners a follow. I know that both of them stream quite often, being that they also play a ton of ladder. They are a blast to watch.
Yeah, I was talking with Kaesden a little bit about his seeding, and he was pretty comfortable with it because Kaesden's only loss was to Floyd, and Floyd's only loss was to the 6-0 Scoople, I believe. So Kaesden was feeling pretty good about his rankings because his loss has been basically against people that are very, very top tier. Not as sure where Windfox's loss came from, but also only having one loss, you're going to have a pretty good overall pool of opponents you've been able to beat.
And it looks like throughout all of Pod, the only thing that we've really come up with are those flippers. But those flippers are big as they give us full access to the Crystal Swamp Palace. And Kaesden is going to mirror here and clear out Eastern, which makes perfect sense. One thing that I didn't catch, I'm not certain if the last item in here is on Armos or not.
It is on Armos. There is definitely an item back there, so we're going to see that boss go down as well as its item. And this could be big because Eastern is one of our red crystals. So if this is Fire Rod, I would say Swamp or Skull Woods. If not, I still think we're going over to Swamp Palace, but you never know. Because it's a red crystal, maybe the game likes to put something a little special there. I'm completely lying, by the way. I know that there's no special to it being a red crystal, but in my own mind, I always feel like a red crystal boss should have something more important.
Well, they do. They have the red crystal.
I guess that's true, yeah.
And really, out of all of the dungeon prizes, the red crystal is the biggest priority. Not significantly so more than a regular crystal, but if you have to make the coin flip, the fact that it's a 5/6 crystal is a good criteria to use. And Windfox, again, following suit, continuing into Eastern for the second crystal. Not surprising. And really, having a little bit of trouble with the Stalfos room. There's a particular path that you need to walk so that you can throw pots at specific locations to kill exactly 2 Stalfos before they spawn. And once you get it practiced, it's pretty easy to do. It looks really weird, but you clear that room really fast. If you mess up that walking path, you might spawn up to 4 Stalfos and have to track them down and get them defeated before you can get out of the room. It is a big time loss, considering the size of time losses that you can get in Eastern.
Yeah, we see Kaesden's NMG runs really showing through when it comes to these dungeons. Super clean Eastern Palace, super clean boss fight, very well done. Going back into the Dark World, potentially going to check Pyramid and Catfish here. You know, usually we talk about in moments like this, you know, what would you like to find the most? What item are you looking for? I want to throw something out there of what item do you think would cause the most chaos right now? Because I personally am leaning towards Master Sword because it would send one runner up to Aga maybe and another maybe would put it off.
Maybe. The other thing that might cause a bit of chaos, well, actually, the cape would probably be worse in that sense because that would still send you to Aga without giving you any additional firepower and still leave the possibility of Master Sword for Go mode. The other item that could still cause some havoc would be the flute, potentially opening up that pendant Misery Mire, which nobody wants to go to. And to be clear, it wouldn't open it up right away, but we know those mitts are required. Mitts are going to be available at some point, so if flute is found, there's a good chance that Mire becomes available fairly shortly.
Yeah, looking here, I would not be surprised to see Kaesden jump in and do escape. We'll see. Nope, looks like he's heading out over to Catfish. When you're on that pyramid, it's a good time to check out the front of escape. Just because you're there, you can just mirror and do it. So I've seen that play done a lot, but Kaesden's saying I'm not doing escape, which I believe there's still an item in Dark Cross that we haven't seen unless we haven't seen the map.
I think we saw the map in the front of escape and the key in the sanctuary chest. So my understanding is that Dark Cross does have an item.
Yeah, that's one that, you know, if I was in Kaesden's shoes, I probably would have mirrored there and checked Escape and Dark Cross, because you have that lamp to put all of that in logic. So maybe thinking there was already so much value in Escape, how could it possibly have more? We are going to see Kaesden go and check these flipper locations, as Windfox still right behind.
Yeah, and it's interesting because despite the fact that these runners are kind of on each other's tail, like for the majority of this seed really isn't as linear as it looks. There are a lot of options available to both runners. They're just choosing to stay in lockstep with each other, which is interesting.
And you find a mushroom on Zora Ledge, do you just grab it and go turn it in? I mean, you're right here. You don't have the flute. When's going to be a better time?
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that flute's ever going to show up. Given the dungeon layouts, flute can be up in Ganon's tower.
Yeah, and somebody should tell Zora that's probably not the best mushroom, and you don't want those. Those will grow quick. They'll take over that whole ledge there. So very nice of Kaesden to pluck it out of the ground, do some gardening for Zora, and it does look like Kaesden is going to go turn that into the witch's hut.
Speaking of growing mushrooms, something that I didn't know about the...
Wait, what?
Hmm?
Speaking of growing mushrooms...
I actually have an interesting story about this one. One that's,
okay, go ahead.
Safe and game related. So one of the things that I actually learned about the vanilla game, about the mushroom and its vanilla location in Lost Woods, if you pick that up and then come back to Lost Woods later, the mushroom actually respawns, even though you don't have any use for it anymore.
Huh. I did not know that. That's some interesting mushroom information.
Kaesden doing a really neat mirror bonk trick. It's actually, if you're coming from the Dark World, the fastest way to reset the shop to be able to turn in the mushroom. You set the mirror spot in that nook in the bushes, and when you go to bonk, or when you go back into the Dark World to reset the wish, you cut through the bush from the top and walk into the portal, and you will bonk on that bush and immediately return back to the light world.
Yeah, and Kaesden doing this route here that I like a lot. You now can go from Catfish and check the King's Tomb and the Graveyard Ledge and Bonk Rocks, all of those checks that Windfox has already checked, as we do see Windfox now heading up to the mountain. So we're going to see both runners cover what the other has checked. We haven't seen progression in either of those two locations, potentially in Hera, because when Kaesden was there, there wasn't the lamp. Other than that, maybe Skull Woods, maybe Thieves Town.
Yeah, Kaesden has the opportunity to check the front of Skull Woods, which in open especially, a lot of runners will treat that kind of like overworld locations, since the front of Skull Woods doesn't have any item requirements to actually get into those chests. There's potentially 2 items there. Thieves Town, being a pendant, still has 4 items in there. Again, kind of can be like glorified overworld, which is why it's kind of gross when you see a pendant Thieves Town, because you'd rather just know that you have to clear it and pick up those 4 items pretty easily.
Yeah, and chat pointing out what we were talking about before, still Swamp Palace is open. Maybe they don't want to go and check it out without a Master Sword. Maybe they're hoping that they can go mode Swamp Palace or skip some of it. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is here for skipping Swamp Palace for Windfox. For Kaesden, I kind of understand, because you have this nice route that you can full clear this whole overworld stretch. But Windfox has already cleared this stuff, and you're 1 item away. You need Master Sword or Cape, and you can get your Titan's Mitts to do that on the mountain. Surprised to see Windfox not diving just Swamp Palace.
Here's another interesting thing. Windfox going past Hera, Windfox actually having enough items to be able to full clear Pendant Hera, choosing at this time to completely forgo it.
I'm getting dead rocked.
Yeah, dead rocks are not your friend, and they're actually programmed to not be your friend. If you don't know this, their movement is actually programmed so that every third or so movement, they intentionally try to move into your way.
Are you sure it's every third and not every single time?
Yeah, they have a little bit of a random aspect just to make sure that you can't predict exactly when they're going to get in your way. It actually makes them more nefarious. Oh, and Windfox taking a death on the mountain. That's going to slow him down quite a bit in getting those mountain checks done. And yeah, he's choosing to go right back to it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think Kaesden will go in and check the front 4 of Thieves Town. That's pretty standard for everyone to do. And then after that, I would imagine Kaesden goes to Swamp. You don't have a lot left to do. And again, it's a crystal dungeon that you have to beat. And it looks like he might be foregoing... you can't lift up those rocks, unfortunately, without the Titan's Mitts.
And surprisingly, our runners still don't have the items required to do AGA 1 to pick up the Titan's Mitts.
Yeah, it looks like Kaesden going to check that magic mushroom. We see Windfox now in Paradox Cave, so the runners kind of mimicking each other from about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's funny. Kaesden doing the mountain with Windfox doing the upper Dark World right before Pod and Eastern. As soon as they got out of Pod and Eastern, they kind of went back to doing the what the other one already did.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I wonder... I mean, don't we have the items also necessary to defeat Desert Palace?
I believe so.
So it's just crazy. I wonder if they're just really making sure they don't miss anything, because right now the seed is giving you 2 crystal dungeons that you can go clear. Go and clear them.
I wonder how much of this is they know who they're playing against, and they're kind of getting into each other's heads with trying to get this routing done as carefully as possible.
And it looks like after us talking about them splitting up, they're coming right back together to go into Swamp Palace.
They both covered each other's tracks. Time to converge again. But now it kind of makes a lot more sense. There really isn't a huge amount of area to go other than swamp into desert. I don't know, SEJay. When we were talking about the early part of the seed and the fact that I really liked pod into, and that gave us what we needed to do Swamp Palace. Let's see if Swamp Palace is the answer, and if I happen to be right, only if because I'm not the one playing the seed.
Well, the randomizer knows when you're playing and when you're not playing. So it knows that if you're playing, if your play was to go into Swamp, obviously the items then would be on Graveyard Ledge. Obviously it doesn't. I might be a little bit salty about a few bad seeds I've had this week.
And these runners are so close. There's still a couple checks outstanding that one has done and not the other, but none of those checks were anything of consequence, so very easily skippable. They find what they need here, and Windfox really just a room or two behind. This is an incredibly close race and has been the entire seed.
Yeah, there's not really any items or any checks that one runner has a major advantage on. That mushroom was just a boomerang, so nothing crazy there. It's a close one. You know, at this point, it's too close to tell, and we're probably going to find some progression here. I mean, we pretty much have to in Swamp or Desert to move forward, and maybe once we get those Titans emits, we'll see some deviation again in what these runners decide to do first.
Well, it's still very possible that we have a bit of a troll where maybe we have something that is locking Fire Rod in the front of Skull Woods. Maybe the orphaned Tower of Hera was the answer all along. And maybe we do have to do the dip into Pendant Thieves Town, because why not? Blind, when he has a pendant, loves to have progression items.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. We did see a dip into Tower of Hera from Kaesden, but didn't have the fire source to go any further. A bit surprised we didn't see either runner check out Thieves Town.
So Kaesden doing the bomb setup for Diver down on left side swamp. Given how many items are still left in this seed, it makes sense that both of these runners are doing left side swamp immediately. Again, still making essentially the same decisions as the other one.
Yeah, and Kaesden knows how to do the Samaria Diver Down. Just chooses to always do the bomb setup because his words exactly are, I don't always have the cane. So just make sure that he can always do it with the bomb setups, as we see Windfox setting up with the Cane of Samaria here. But I've asked Kaesden why he doesn't use the cane, and he says, I know how to do it. I just like to use bombs because I can always do it.
It's kind of nice being able to see both setups here in one race. And it really does come down to preference. And I definitely understand the runners who want to do the bomb setup because bombs are always available. I understand the runners who want to do Samaria because the timing is less finicky. You don't need to make sure that you get the kind of the tricky swim move correct in the fuse timer of the bomb.
You know, one thing that we haven't talked about, and it's probably not good to overlook it, Kaesden does have more health. There is a Sank Heart down here that Windfox is about to have, but Kaesden does have a little bit more health, a little bit safer with the route that he's chosen to take than Windfox's route. So I think it's a difference of 1 or 2 hearts. I can't count that fast, but Kaesden definitely a little bit healthier.
So now we have Diver down round 2. Kaesden pulling that off very quickly. Windfox probably doing the same again once he gets up here. And Swamp, so far not having anything. Left side Swamp only having 1 heart piece, or sorry, 1 heart container and a bunch of dungeon items.
Chat asking, is there a way to use the mirror to get through the barrier to Aga? There is a mirror revival that you can do. It requires some setup, and it's so niche that not a lot of new runners practice that setup. So, though it is possible, I doubt that either of our runners has spent a lot of time learning how to set that up, so we probably won't see that today.
Oh, and Fighter Sword Argus. Argus, typically not a boss that you're afraid that he's going to defeat you, but with only Fighter Sword, is a boss that you can lose a ton of time to. Hit those puffs only take damage from Fighter Sword spins and require 2 spin hits to kill. So a very slow method of killing those puffs indeed.
Yeah, when you have the fighter sword, you're contemplating, do I use the fighter sword or do I use the hammer strats? There is a way that you can grab 2 puffs and hit both of them with the fighter sword and kill them both, but it's a very tight window. It's very difficult to do. more often than not, you'll kill one of the puffs, and the other one will only take one of the spin hits, and will just go back anyway. So we see Kaesden finishing up those puffs and going to just use fighter sword spins. This is going to take a minute, but it'll get done.
And Windfox is going with the opposite strategy. He is going through the menu boss and switching very quickly between hookshot and hammer to clear out these puffs.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that also means that Windfox will use the hammer to fight Argus once all the puffs are gone. And that is faster. It's only 4 hammer hits, I believe, versus 8 fighter sword spins to defeat Argus.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When you fight the main body of Argus, you're looking to use either like Silver's, Ice Rod, Fire Rod, Master Sword, or better, and our runners have none of those things.
So nothing in Swamp. Off to Desert, I suppose.
Yeah, Desert, I believe, still has one item. The first item being Moon Pearl. There's one more item there. I would have expected that the runners would have checked Desert Ledge, and it was nothing. I just don't recall what it was. So they're going to pick up a crystal there, pick up one more item, and we'll see if it actually hints at us to go somewhere, or if they're going to have to start clearing out pendant dungeons.
Yeah, I think that these crystal dungeons could have been cleared out earlier, and that would have enticed maybe the runners to do some of those pendant dungeons while they were there. If you had done Swamp and Desert right after Pod and Eastern, you could have then said, okay, well, I've cleared everything else out. I'm right by Thieves Town. Might as well dive it, versus leaving it for later like we've seen now. So, interesting choices by both the runners to choose to clear the overworld before diving those crystals, and we're kind of seeing the result of it is that even when you dive those crystals and do the whole overworld, I mean, this seed at least, still nothing. It's just dragging on.
So at this point, we're still looking for both rods, with Trinex being a crystal. And we are still looking for a way to fight Aga 1, because Titan's Mitts are required and are on Lumberjack. We need a cape or a Master Sword to be able to collect that, and an hour in, we still have neither.
Yeah, this is a weird seed. This is one of those that you start looking around the room and you check the website and make sure it doesn't say customizer or created by, somebody playing a little bit of trickery, but no, it's just a weird seed. The seed wants to lock progression behind Aga. That seems to be pretty clear. And it's locked whatever we need to beat Aga pretty deep into the game.
And also, as a viewer, you might see Kaesden and Windfox constantly on each other's tails. This looks like it's a linear seed if you're just glancing at it, but it really wasn't. When we got to the Dark World, we had so many options available, and the runners are just picking very similar paths through the game.
Yeah, we're going to go to the boss of Desert. I believe that's where the item is. I didn't catch another item in Desert. Then I go to Thieves Town. I don't gamble on Hera. I go to the 4 items instead of the 2 items. That's where I'm headed next if there's nothing here.
Yeah, Hera only being 2 items and being all the way up the mountain, I don't see either of them going to Hera first. I think Thieves Town is our next stop. The only thing that I would think that they might do first, and I don't think they will, is to check those first couple items in the front of Skull Woods. And also, Kaesden might still have in the back of his mind that he still hasn't done front of escape. Unless I am forgetting that.
Yeah, I don't believe we've seen front of escape, and I don't think either runner has done Dark Cross, so it'd be interesting to see if something's been hiding in Dark Cross this whole time.
If something ends up being in Dark Cross, I think that'll give Kaesden an odd advantage, given that he will be more likely to go back there knowing that there's the whole front of escape.
And I don't know about you, but we're currently watching on Kaesden's screen, and it's going to be Windfox soon, probably one of the most annoying fights in this game, which is Landmos with just a fighter sword and bow, no fire rod, no ice rod, no silvers. They could have tried to use the hammer, but even still, it's not very fast. It's just a gross fight, as we see Kaesden finishing up.
A lot of runners do practice this particular fight because it is the NMG version of the fight, but it's not fun. And Windfox actually taking enough hits that he uses a red potion just to make sure that he can get all the way through this fight.
Yeah, like I said, it is very easy to have those landmos kind of bully you around with those rocks, and as you kill the first two, I believe the third one starts spitting out more rocks in a quote-unquote enraged phase that maybe a lot of people don't know about, but once you're on that third landmo, more rocks do come out.
So we were talking about Kaesden and not doing escape. He's going there now. So it's likely that after clearing the bottom of escape, that he's just going to mirror and go straight to Dark Cross, and we'll see what's actually been hiding there this whole time.
Yeah, it's still hard to tell who's ahead in this race because each of the runners has done a couple of checks that the other one hasn't. Windfox might have a bit of a lead going into Thievestown, but we'll have to see how this plays out. I want to see what's in Dark Cross.
Well, with a couple of big items still hanging out there, some of them being the access to get to the Titan's Mitts, there's a lot of unknowns still in this game, so with them being so close, there's a lot of ways that one of them could get an advantage over the other still.
And it looks like Windfox is thinking about going and turning in that mushroom that he's been having in his back pocket for a while. Gonna find that blue boomerang and realize it's nothing.
So again, before dropping into any of the pendant dungeons, both runners going and cleaning up the few checks that the other runner had done first. So I'm expecting by the time we get into pendant dungeons, which is where we believe progression is going to be, they'll have cleaned things up and they'll be back in sync. I'm going to guess going into Thievestown.
Yeah. That was actually a pretty clean. I don't know if you saw that, but Kaesden and Windfox going into the magic shop and Kaesden mirroring it about the same time. It was kind of a pretty transition. It was nice to look at. Sorry, I got distracted. Just arrows.
Classic SEJay getting distracted by mirrors.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's a big story of my life. I experienced that a lot. Yeah, so the question now becomes Tower of Hera or Thievestown, and I think most people are going to say Thievestown here. You have everything to beat it. There's 4 items in it versus the 2 in Hera, plus Hera has the long mountain climb up there. This is the play that I would make in the current situation, too.
There is still the possibility of 2 items in the front of Skull Woods, and you're coming in through this Lost Woods portal, which doesn't have a clean entrance into Village of Outcasts. There's a good chance that the front checks in Skull Woods might be done first before Thievestown.
Yeah, personally, I would do Thievestown first. You're hoping to find a fire rod, and if you dive Skull Woods, then go Thieves Town, find the fire rod in Thieves Town, and then come back. It's a little bit slower, but it does look like Kaesden is heading towards the village, so probably Thieves Town first.
Yeah, Windfox going to do Dark Cross.
Oh my!
They are in more. The lockstep is just insane.
And I could tell you right now, if there's an item in the front of Thieves Town here, both of these runners are going to feel very behind, because this is a check that's pretty commonly done. If they find something here to go up and do AGA, they're both probably going to be a little panicked, and we'll have to see if that affects, whenever we find the progression, because at this point, you're probably, when you find the progression, you think, oh, I should have checked this forever ago. So it'll be interesting to see how kind of their mindset stays, and if they can keep their cool through the rest of the run and maintain this high level of execution that we've been seeing.
Well, we might actually have the opposite problem. So we've already pulled map and compass out of the front. Big key is back here. Is the small key here for the trifecta? Or quadfecta? Now, there is one item out here, so not a useful item, but the small key is somewhere in the back. 3 items in the back.
This is almost a good thing, in my opinion. When there's 3 items in the back, you don't have to sit there and gamble, do I do the back for 1 or 2 items, or do I not do the back for those 1 or 2 items?
Well,
when you have 3 in the back, you're going to go do the back.
With how few items there are out there, if you have 1 in the back, it's not much of a gamble anymore.
And we see Windfox right behind Kaesden, going right over to Thieves Town.
No love for the front of Skull Woods. I know when I play Ambrosia, I skip the front of Skull Woods all the time. But at this point in open, especially when you come through the portal so close, I don't know. And if you end up pulling something from the front of Skull Woods that locks the fire rod, you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, with the current route that we're seeing, I would expect the runners to go into Skull Woods next. We might get to see a pedestal check, which I know Chad is always fond of, those pedestal checks. So keep your eyes out after Thieves Town. If we don't find any progression to move anywhere, pretty likely we're going to go see Skull Woods and potentially see that pedestal.
Yeah, I wonder if the runners are actually going to spend the time doing the pedestal check, considering that without Flute, Misery Mire still seems very far away. I guess
it does, but you never are going to go back to that area. Maybe when you beat Skull Woods, we'll get that pedestal check, but we are still missing the Ice Rod and potentially medallions for Turtle Rock. So, in my opinion, if you're in the area, it's not the worst thing to go and take a look at. We do find a small key, so there is going to be an item in the big chest here as we see Kaesden making his way through the dungeon.
Well, actually, either rod could be on pedestal right now, because neither is required for any of the pendant dungeons. And I missed what was in the big chest in Thieves Town.
It was just a piece of heart, so nothing exciting there either.
This seed is just not giving up the goods and making our runners run around with really minimal offensive equipment.
Yeah, not a lot of safeties either. No Cane of Berna, no Cape. They do have some potions. They both have all 4 of their bottles already, so that's maybe a sign of terrible things to come. 4 bottles and a fighter sword screams a lot of really hard boss fights.
And Thieves Town completely empty. Oh man. So now I'm expecting to see the dip into the front of Skullwoods.
Yeah.
Just because that's so much closer than Tower of Hera. Tower of Hera is so out of the way, sitting all the way up on the mountain. Yep, going right into Skullwoods.
And if there is something in Hera, Windfox had the opportunity when he was up there to go into Hera with that lamp and check some things out, get that big key, and maybe even full clear it. Opted not to. Kaesden probably would have done that had Kaesden found the lamp earlier. So that might be a bit of a difference that does play a huge role, not necessarily for giving one racer a lead or not, but could have been huge for Wind depending on what we find up there.
And the cape is in Skullwoods. See, I knew I liked the front of Skullwoods play here.
Okay, so you have a cape. It's Aga time. And Kaesden is right on point with that. Got that cape, said, I don't even care if there's something else in this dungeon that I need. I have to go beat Aga to get my mitts. I'm going to Aga to get my mitts.
And one of the big drivers behind that is once you have mitts, you now have access to the 3 items in Ice Palace. And being a crystal, let's get that done.
Yeah, with Bombos early on, you had Bombos, Cane of Samaria, Hookshot, Hammer. You have everything you could ever want and more, including flippers, to logically put Ice Palace in logic. So you definitely are heading to Ice Palace here soon. As we see Windfox leaving Thieves Town, also realizing nothing's there, gonna find the cape, and I'd imagine also going to bail as soon as he finds it.
Taking the wrong path. So when you get this late in the seed and you're just trying to get up to Skullwoods as quickly as possible, it makes sense that you forget you still don't have Titansmids yet. So a little bit of a check when he grabs that rock and just kind of stands there for a moment.
Oh, I do that all the time. We do see the runners or Kaesden making his way up, and we're going to see Windfox grab that cape. We'll see if Windfox sticks around for an item. I highly doubt it. I would imagine Windfox is going to bail out after this too. Yep, and that's exactly what it looks like.
And our runners continuing to be in lockstep with Windfox just a little bit behind. Oh no, Windfox is actually going to clear out the rest of the front of Skullwoods. At least in this case, if you do the drop-in and you find out that there is no keys in this back area, you're still safe to just save and quit out, because you're going to be going to do Aga 1 anyway.
Yeah, interesting difference of routes here. You know that there's progression by doing Aga, maybe hoping that you can find a better sword or a fire rod or something along the way to just kind of make life a little bit nicer, make you feel a little bit better about putting off Skullwoods, but nothing in Skullwoods right now. It'll be interesting to see if Windfox also checks that middle room.
Yeah, and that would be extremely thorough for him to check that. We have essentially 3 checks left. We have the 2 checks in the back of Skullwoods and that middle chest. Only one of them is an item, and I say essentially because any one of those chests might be the big key, which would just delay that item till you pick up the big chest. So yeah, the Skullwoods big key essentially being a mini fetch quest.
Yeah.
And Windfox not finding the item in Skullwoods, the last item in there is firelocked, so losing a little bit more time to Kaesden in this case.
Yeah, and honestly, Mitts opens up so much. You do Ice Palace for sure. Honestly, after Ice Palace, we don't have Flute, so we can't do Mire. It's kind of back up to the mountain. I mean, even though mitts are pretty big, they unlock a lot. They unlock Smith Chain, which is pretty helpful. But they unlock a lot of things up on the mountain, especially already having Hookshot.
Yeah, the combination of Hookshot Cave and Super Bunny Cave is 6 checks. there's the potential of depending on key layout, grabbing a couple items in Turtle Rock. And neither runner has done Spike Cave yet, given that neither of them had an invulnerability item until we finally picked up that cape.
Yeah, we did see Kaesden miss one shot here, so Windfox can catch up a little bit of time by hitting that. But otherwise, pretty clean Agate Tower by Kaesden, Windfox following right behind. A lot of blue balls here.
The good news is the blue ball pattern for both runners are going to be exactly the same. It's tied to the seed, so no runner is going to lose time to the other over just randomness. It's going to be pure execution to see who gets out of Aga the quickest, and given the way the Aga fight works, it's unlikely that either of them are going to gain or lose time. So Kaesden now going over to Lumberjacks. One thing that you kind of wonder, is he going to loop in Bumper Cave with this check?
I believe Kaesden checked Bumper Cave earlier. It's only 10 arrows, if I'm remembering correctly. So I think both of the runners have looked at Bumper Cave, and it's nothing.
All right, fair enough. Now it makes sense why Kaesden is just going straight to Lumberjack and picking up his mitts.
Yeah, so wacky seed up to this point. Now with the mitts, a little bit more open, not completely wide open yet, but I would be shocked if we didn't see Ice Palace here.
Yeah, we have Ice Palace opening up, we have the Mountain opening up, and we have Smith Chain opening up. Which, I mean, out of those, the juiciest from most juicy the least, to me, would be Ice Palace, followed by the Mountain, followed by Smith Chain.
And let me tell you, this Ice Palace play, though you know you have to make it, you are not happy about it. Because what do you like to fight Cold Stare with? Well, a Master Sword maybe, Tempered Sword, Buttered Sword, Fire Rod. Any of those are great. You're going to have to fight him with a Fighter Sword and a Hammer. And that is not an easy task.
The one good news about this seed, when they went through that South Dark World loop, they picked up a ton of bottles with potions. So that will give some safety when doing Hammer Cold Stare, but it's not a comfortable fight.
I'll counter that with the one good thing about this seed is that we're watching it, not playing it. Because it's a fun one to watch.
I don't know. This seed has I mean, Fighter Sword is a bit rough, but when you get to this point and you know that both players have Fighter Sword, you can chalk that up to, okay, whoever has the better execution has an advantage here. And as you can see, the execution for these two players are very similar. It's just a matter of Fighter Sword's what you got. That's what you have to move forward with. I just am laughing at the fact that this seed would have rolled exactly the way it needed to for me to route it very efficiently, which proves that I'm not playing it.
Oh my goodness. We did see Kaesden go through that Pengator room. We're seeing him go through it again. Gonna set up Icebreaker here. If you haven't seen the Icebreaker glitch, it's a really fun one. It lets you skip a lot of the boring parts of Ice Palace and get straight to the chest. So that's a really fun one, as we do see Windfox now going to head over and grab his Titan's mitts as well.
Yeah, so this Icebreaker glitch is a fairly new one, and actually the one that kind of got me interested in speed running, or racing in A Link to the Past randomizer. It's kind of a fun thing where you put the Samaria block down in a very specific spot where with you clipped into the wall, just such that the game kind of thinks that you are in the doorway with that Samaria block. And the game was programmed such that if you're in a doorway and you're trying to move up or down out of that doorway, it says, okay, we're going to push you directly out of the door, and if there's obstacles in the way, just walk through them. And that is what allows you to go through that wall.
I tell you, one of these days, the Cane of Samaria will be the only thing you need.
Well, when I was a kid playing Link to the Past and I didn't know any better, I used to get the Cane of Samaria and I'd be like, what is this item? Oh, and we find Ether in Ice Palace. Still not progression right now, but makes it more likely that we'll have what we need to get into Turtle Rock. But yeah, as a kid, I used to get Cane of Samaria and I'd be like, what is this item? All it does is let me hit these switches. Oh man, have I been enlightened today.
Yeah, chat having a bit of a discussion. When you're in Ice Palace, a lot of people will go back and hit that switch because if you're doing Ice Palace Bomb Jump or if you're doing Icebreaker, it's a way to get to the boss quicker. If you're full clearing the dungeon, you don't necessarily have to hit that switch. If you have Cane of Samaria, you definitely don't have to because then you're guaranteed that you can beat the dungeon. But with bomb jumps, like we saw Kaesden do, it is a little bit quicker to hit that switch and then do those bomb jumps and come back. If you don't know that bomb jump there, I recommend not hitting that switch because it will take you longer to walk all the way around to clear Ice Tea Room.
Ice Palace is definitely one of the worst dungeons to route in the vanilla game. So, Ice Palace Bomb Jump and Icebreaker being two tricks to make that dungeon tolerable. Both of them hitting ranks 2 and 3 on the Go Mode podcast ranking of tricks to learn. So if you haven't seen the tricks to learn from this past Go Mode podcast, definitely listen to that. There's a whole ranking 1 through 10 of things that you should definitely be picking up, ranked by players through a survey, and that should help you know where you should continue to get better with this game first.
So we're now watching Fighter Sword Cold Stare. Kaesden also whipping out the hammer to use. Hammer's a little bit scary because those puffballs do a lot of damage to you, even on blue mail. So have to be careful. We'll see. It's a tough fight. Very possible chance of death here for either of these runners.
Oh, and he's taken a ton of damage. Manages to pull out the red potion at a half of a heart left.
And I believe Windfox used that red potion from earlier, so Windfox might have to rely on the cape and spin strategies if he gets into a bind.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to know. Cold Stare, being a Dark World boss, takes no damage from Fighter Sword slashes. If you want to do even the minimal damage to a Dark World boss, you need to do spin slashes with the Fighter Sword, which is not fast at all.
And Kaesden able to beat Cold Stare with the hammer. Very well done. That small key tells you logically that Cane of Samaria is required to beat this dungeon, though now it doesn't matter as much as some other seeds, but very well done for that fight. That is a very hard fight to do.
So now we're looking at the mountain with Tower of Hera or Smith Chain.
Kaesden doing a good job there to remember to mirror before you save and quit, because once you beat Aga 1, if you save and quit in the Dark World, you will end up just back on top of the pyramid.
Yeah, if you have the mirror. So there's actually a bit of coding in there to make sure that you have the mirror first, so that you can't get locked into the Dark World permanently.
Twitch saying both rods being on Laser Bridge. Unfortunately, Ice Rod can be, but Fire Rod cannot be on Laser Bridge. You do have to have Fire Rod to get to that Fire Bar room, and there is a requirement for Turtle Rock that you, I believe, have to get into that room. So, not possible for that, but we could see some shenanigans here. We do have a Red Cane. If Turtle Rock is Ether or Bombos, we could check the first check there, and you never know. That could be a small key, which leads to a small key. which then takes you to Mimic Cave.
And now it's getting more and more likely, especially with how crazy this routing has been, that one of those rods are just hanging out there on pedestal.
Yeah, that's always something you have to think about, because we can beat Hera. With a flute, we could beat Misery Mire. And we've already beaten Thieves Town, so a flute away and we could do Pedestal.
Yeah, I would say that we're thinking about it. Chat is definitely thinking about it. The runners maybe not on the top of their mind because they still don't have flute. One of the things about routing in Link to the Past randomizers, sometimes when you don't have an item to access a location, you can just kind of put it out of your mind. That's one of the reasons why runner. Oh, and with that we have the flute, and now it's in the players' minds.
Oh my goodness, the flute and the blue cane in Hookshot Cave, so now that puts Misery Mire into play. How long before we go and read that Pedestal?
It's tough to tell. If the players end up doing Tower of Hera while they're up here on the mountain, maybe you don't read the pedestal at all. Maybe you just go into Mire. Mire has green pendant, which means you're never going to know what Sahasrara has until you turn it in. I wouldn't be surprised if if the pedestal is pulled, it's pulled blind.
And Turtle Rock is Bombos here. Kaesden looking like he is going to jump into that, as we see Windfox now starting up his Cold Stare fight. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, because again, very difficult fight. I think it takes 6 hits with the hammer per eyeball to kill them. So not an easy fight by any means. Any means.
And that hammer hitbox is atrocious. Try if you're just starting out randomizer, or if you played a bit, go grab a hammer and just try to hit like a popo or a guard or something, and you will see that it is actually really challenging to hit anything with that hammer.
If you want a good challenge, go start hitting the mini Moldorms in Mini Moldorm Cave. That's always a fun experience.
In my experience, it's a dead experience.
Yeah,
last time I tried.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh,
I was just saying, last time I did Mini Moldorm Cave with 3 hearts and a hammer, I died 3 times.
Oh no. Windfox getting aggressive. Was doing well too, hadn't taken much damage from the eyes all fight, and right at the end there, that's a tough one.
So even knowing that Cold Stare has a key and not an item, Windfox decided to go right back in there instead of waiting for a stronger piece of equipment to take it down. If that was me, my thought would be it's going to be just as fast later as it is now at worst, and at best, I'll come back here with Fire Rod, Tempered Sword, something to make those puffs significantly easier. Or even just with a potion. So, Turtle Rock coming up, Fire Rod locked very early.
Oh, and I think after Kaesden's death, they're opting not to dive back in and check what's in that Chain Chomp room.
Oh, he died. I missed that. I was looking at the re-entry of Ice Palace for Windfox.
Yeah, Kaesden was fighting the little bouncy ball enemy, the pokey, I forget what they're called. But with the hammer, got to low health, and unfortunately, the chomps got him. So, didn't get to check that item. That could be big. Looks like definitely going to go activate that flute. We might even see a pedestal check here.
Yeah, that's interesting, because he also orphans Spike Cave and Tower of Hera. I mean, on the flip side, this flute gives you 3 really easy checks in the Misery Mire area, as well as the ability to check out what the entrance criteria is for Misery Mire. And it gives you a quick way of getting around the world.
Yeah, I
So
don't hate this
Kaesden
play.
fluting immediately and going right where I thought he would, into the mire area. Entering the portal in the way that you would normally do to activate the spooky glitch. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's just habit, because he doesn't have Fire Rod to actually do the spooky glitch.
Yeah, it looks like it looked like Quake on Mire, if I saw that right. So I don't believe we can go in there yet. And it does look like Windfox opted to not continue that Ice Palace chase. Now going up to Death Mountain. Going to find his flute as well. We'll see if he dives further into Turtle Rock and how big of a play that is.
Yeah, I think Windfox would have saved himself a lot of time if he just recognized that he should have bailed out immediately after the first death and just waited for better equipment. Even if you are a strong runner of this game, sometimes you can save yourself a ton of time just by recognizing when you can come back with much better equipment. So Windfox coming over, doing the Dark Death Mountain checks. We'll see if he ends up doing Tower of Hera while up here, and Kaesden choosing to do Smith Chain, which makes sense with really the only options being do Smith Chain or go right back up the mountain. And again, while these runners continue on these checks, if you like what you are seeing, definitely give Go Mode Podcast channel a follow and join us on the Go Mode Podcast Discord to be able to join races and follow a link to the past randomizer news. Just use !Discord in chat to get that information. And these runners are the best of the best in this tournament. Definitely give our runners a follow. They are great, and they put on great races every couple of nights from the Go Mode Podcast Discord. Definitely give them a follow. They're very entertaining.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. We see Spike Cave is nothing. We see Kaesden doing Smith Chain. I don't believe the Smith had anything, so now we're going to go see what Purple Chest has.
And Windfox bailing out with the flute, not checking Turtle Rock, and also still putting off Tower of Hera.
I don't know if I like that abandoning Turtle Rock play. You're right there. You only have one more chest to check. It's Chain Chomps. You died. That room's slow, yes, but by not going back and checking it, you're deciding that's the last place I'm going to check. When you were there, you could just run back and check it, make sure it's nothing, and then move along.
Kaesden going back in to do the rest of Skullwoods, which he hasn't done. And I would assume at this point he's also going to check Pedestal, because we are really running out of stuff to do.
Yeah, at this point it's looking like Tower of Hera or Turtle Rock.
And Windfox coming back down. Probably Windfox is going to clean up Smith Chain. Again, following in Kaesden's footsteps. I will say, despite all of this footstep following, Windfox is slowly falling further and further behind in this linear chase. The death and re-entry for Ice Palace, and knowing that he still has to go back in there and clear Cold Stare has put him significantly far behind Kaesden. And since they really haven't been diverging on routes at all, it's going to take a lot for Windfox to catch back up.
Yeah, I'd say Kaesden has a pretty definitive advantage here. Ahead of Windfox in these checks, and also has the boss of Ice Palace defeated. Kaesden going to realize nothing is in Skull Woods. We'll see where he goes next. They're going to have to go back up the mountain. It's got to be... I think it's got to be Tower of Hera or Turtle Rock.
Yeah, and I'm getting kind of a feeling about Tower of Hera at this point. It's weird for a seed to put something so deep, but we'll see. Yeah, it's either Tower of Hera or Turtle Rock, and Kaesden actually choosing not to do the ped check. So we are still going to have a mystery on our hands with that pedestal. And again, I can't blame him, because now that he's been in the Mire area and sees that without Quake we still can't get into Mire, that puts it back out of our runners' minds again. And Kaesden going into Tower of Hera, which kind of makes sense because he's done the front couple in Turtle Rock already. And he's shown a willingness to go in and do Tower of Hera before.
Yeah, chat asking desperately for the pedestal information, but we still don't know it. It could be anything, it could be nothing, but I would get the feeling, here's a tough call. If you find Quake in Tower of Hera, I think no matter what, you have to go back and check that Turtle Rock chest. Even if you find Quake and can go do Misery Mire, you can beat Hera, you can pull pedestal, I think you have to go back and check Turtle Rock. You've been up to the mountain, this is your third or fourth trip already. You can't just keep climbing up the mountain. It takes too much time every time you go up.
Yeah, and you got to think that your opponent, when going into Turtle Rock, did not have the same unfortunate circumstances, and you don't want to wait through a full pendant Misery Mire clear and the turn in for the green pendant and the pedestal pull just to find out that your opponent found the item that's needed in Chain Chop's room all along.
Yes, yeah. I don't see a scenario here, at least me personally, where I would ever leave Turtle Rock. I feel like you have to go check it.
And the beetles in Hera, still kind of tricky with Fighter Sword only. We are an hour 40 into this seed, and we don't have the Sword of Evil's Bane. I don't know about you, but when it comes to open seeds, and the reason why I'm not as much of a fan of them, I think not finding swords for extraordinarily long periods of time tops the list.
We do find a boomerang, if that makes you feel any better, but yeah, Fighter Sword an hour 41 minutes in. That is a long time to use what is pretty, I would say, generally accepted as a terrible weapon.
So, what is Moldorm hiding from us? What has he been hiding from us this whole time? And, man, does Kaesden wish he was able to actually defeat Moldorm the first time he was up here before we had any weapons at all?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. In this scenario, you're kind of hoping, whether it's Moldorm or the next checks you do, you are definitely hoping, I think, to find Ice Rod before Fire Rod at this point. Once you find Ice Rod, you know your Fire Rod go mode. Once you find Fire Rod, you can do a couple more checks.
And Moldorm has nothing. So we're left with Turtle Rock.
And Turtle Rock is either going to have some form of progression, be it the Fire Rod. I mean, it would have to be the Fire Rod or Quake. I don't think we have a lot of other choices in what we can look at.
Well, look at the tracker. The whole rest of the tracker's lit up.
They don't have silvers, or a mirror shield, or swords. But yeah, they've done a lot in this game to still be missing 2, potentially 3 items.
Oh, and Kaesden's going to do Spike Cave first. Makes sense because he hasn't done Spike Cave yet, but it's going to put him down near the bottom of the mountain, meaning he's going to have to climb back up to get into Turtle Rock. That's going to give Windfox a chance to actually catch back up.
Yeah, Windfox already checking this. Again, these runners are really close. The biggest time difference is they look neck and neck. Kaesden does have a significant advantage beating Ice Palace already. But, I mean, where is he headed? And what's left?
Moldorm giving Windfox the business. Pushing Windfox through that center hole, which is the worst because it's a 2-floor drop. Yeah, and Kaesden going up to Turtle Rock because that's all he's got left.
Now, if you've watched Kaesden's streams or chatted with him, he has a bit of an affinity for last locating items in Mimic Cave. So let's just hope that whatever this is on Chain Chomps. In fact, I believe Kaesden even has a Mimic Cave GG emote that he's put together. So maybe it'll be Mimic Cave. He seems to like Mimic Cave seeds a lot, but maybe it'll be Chain Chomp Room. We'll just have to see.
And Windfox getting the bombs off of Moldorm. Yeah. So, do you think it's going to be Fire Rod and we're finally going to have kind of a downhill run from here, or?
Oh, I hope it's Fire Rod. I don't want it to be Quake. At this point, for the runner's sake, I really want it to be Fire Rod.
At least the one thing going for them, they don't have enough rods right now to have to do a fighter sword Trinex. Oh, I guess it would be a hammer Trinex, but still.
Well, you know, if they find both Fire Rod and Ice Rod in this dungeon, I think the logic for Fighter Sword Trinex requires you to have half magic and 2 potions or 3 potions or something like that. So it's quite possible that could be something the Seed wants to do, and that locked, 4 items into GT? We have a small key, we can check Laser Bridge, we can check Mimic Cave. The dive just keeps going on and on and on.
Well, as you were saying, logically, the progression's not going to be on Laser Bridge, but we could find something in the lava chest, it could be in the big chest, or we could have it in Mimic Cave.
Oh, and Kaesden opting to use the hammer here. Use Bombos, I would recommend in this situation. Bombos will kill a lot of enemies, including those little pokey guys. So definitely recommend utilizing your Bombos medallion here if you have it.
Yeah, that's one of the mistakes that new players, including myself, make very frequently, forgetting the fact that those medallions are actually incredibly good weapons.
Oh, we see Windfox grabbing and finding out the Tower of Hera is nothing. And there is finally a Master Sword. We found one.
I mean, when you get this late into the seed and you still haven't found Master Sword, it just kind of makes sense it would finally show up in Turtle Rock.
But even with the Master Sword, that's not progression.
Not anymore.
I believe Kaesden went to the wrong item.
Oh, that's another chance for Windfox to continue to make up time. Now, that's still not enough. Windfox is still behind, and even though they're going to be re-entering Turtle Rock at about the same time, Windfox has a lot of chests to open and key enemies to kill. It's still going to take him longer to get through it, and he still has to do Ice Palace, but it's time that Kaesden doesn't want to hand back to Windfox right now.
Definitely. And we'll see if Windfox remembers to use Bombos in some of these rooms where Kaesden used Fighter Sword. Yeah, Kaesden did mirror there. Must have been going for maybe the cape for some protection or something along those lines. But yeah, these, even with Master Sword, these enemies in Turtle Rock are not nice to fight. And here comes Mimic Cave. Oh boy, what does it got? Does it have Fire Rod? Does it have Quake?
We'll see. This is kind of the moment of truth, which is why I'm kind of staying quiet and letting it play out. And it's the Fire Rod!
Oh, thank goodness. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that does have some negative sides, because Kaesden now can go back up to the top of Turtle Rock and clear the right side.
Imagine if Ice Rod is up in the front of Turtle Rock, and now that he's left Turtle Rock, he can't just mirror back. He's got to completely leave Turtle Rock and then come back up the mountain. Maybe since he's fluting away, he's deciding to do Skull Woods first.
I don't hate this play. It does take time to go back to the top of Turtle Rock. You have to beat Skull Woods anyway. If Skull Woods has Ice Rod, you're good to go. If it has Quake, that's a bummer, because then you have to do that. But you can at least mirror now, check Pedestal. If Pedestal is Ice Rod, then it's real rough, because you have to go back up to Turtle Rock to find Quake to come back. But I would say at this point, you're really just hoping, Skull Woods, give me Ice Rod, let me finish this seed. I want to go to bed.
Can you imagine that, though? After all of this stuff that this seed has put our runners through, and it's still an Ice Rod hunt.
Yeah, and we see Windfox also not using Bombos, using Fighter Sword strategies, so definitely something to ask the runners afterwards if they were just unaware, or if they thought it'd be faster, wanted to save magic, so we'll have to see.
Send in chat pointing something out, the potential that Kaesden could have looked for the keys to potentially get all the way to Laser Bridge, and at least check it in that case, just to see if Ice Rod was there and you can just clear Turtle Rock in one shot. It's kind of a gamble either way, I would say, because sure, you save a lot of time if Ice Rod's there, but if Ice Rod's not there, or you don't have the keys to get all the way through, you lose quite a bit of time, especially with Ice Rod in the front of Turtle Rock.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it off, forever, but at the end of the day, because you have to do Skull Woods, you're doing another mountain climb no matter what. You have to climb the mountain again, so when you climb the mountain again, you can just go in the front of Turtle Rock. It'll be interesting to see what's back here on Moth, and I assume we'll get a pedestal check, finally, but you never know. The game still could want us to beat Misery Mire. It's a crazy game sometimes.
And we are in a crazy world where Master Sword Mothula seems like
oh,
a god.
No. Oh no!
Medallion! Oh no!
Why?
This seed is hateful! Now, if Ice Rod's in Turtle Rock and Windfox continues to do that, Windfox could make up all that time. Kaesden might be going to Misery Mire now.
Oh,
We'll
you have to
see.
check You have to check pedestal.
Oh yeah, with wait, what's Kaesden doing? Did he forget that he's already got both items in Skull Woods?
I
Both
think
of
he
them were
did.
progression.
Yeah, I
He
think
should.
he forgot that he got Cape in Skullwoods as well.
Yeah, you do have to check pedestal because that's a real quick check, and that'll tell you immediately. Like you got to get your butt to Mire if Ice Rod is on that ped.
Well, we got a
And
mirror. We'll see if it's a flute or a book. All right, chat, get ready. It's pedestal time. We're just reading it, but
Ped is dead. After all of that time of wondering, it is not Ped, which makes it a much more difficult choice for Kaesden. Does he go after the 3 items in Green Pendant Mire, or does he go back to Turtle Rock and hope that he gets Ice Rod along the way?
I like this play by Windfox here. Now you have a Fire Rod and a Master Sword. Ice is a lot safer. Go ahead and get that done with. Make sure that, you have a second to kind of collect your thoughts, decide what am I going to do next. You know you're going to do Ice. You know you're going to do Swamp. It'll at least give you time. Yeah, Kaesden is blanking that he got both items in Swamp. It looks like maybe just remembered, oh, I found the cape in here. That's right. This looks familiar.
Well, did he have the big key to even open that chest, or was the big key locked in itself?
No, he had gotten the big key from the back of that back chest that he had checked after Moth.
So yeah, with this seed, with the way that it's put them through everything, when you hit the 154 mark and you're still not in go mode, your mind is gone. Like, I don't blame Kaesden at all for forgetting that he had already gotten keep out of Skull Woods. I know I just questioned it, saying, but it was progression, and it was the major progression item.
Oh, this is a big play by Kaesden. I didn't even think of this. Skull Woods is your red crystal.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
We're going to get a big bomb here. If this is Ice Rod, this could be the final nail in the coffin, I think.
Yeah, this is a good play from Kaesden. Now I totally understand why he bailed on Turtle Rock. It makes it seem like far more the better play. It's a shame that he pulled Quake out of Skull Woods in the process, but we'll see. Yeah, is Ice Rock in Pyramid Fairy?
The logic here would make sense. Honestly, if I'm Kaesden, even though I've done it I've gone up the mountain enough times, I'm still doing Mire and I'm doing Green Pendant. I'm last checking Turtle Rock at this point. I don't want to have to go back to Turtle Rock again.
Pyramid Fairy is empty, other than green potions.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he does here. Our options remaining are Misery Mire and going back to Turtle Rock with no Ice Rod.
He's still got a little bit of time. Even with having to take the gamble between the two, it's the same gamble that Windfox would have to make. But Kaesden has a really big time advantage considering Windfox going back in and doing Ice Palace. One thing that I am curious about with these runners, they have 4 bottles, a flute, a ton of money, and they have been really stingy about visiting the potion shop and picking up blue potions, especially with how low their gear level is. And with the trouble that Kaesden had with Turtle Rock and the trouble that Windfox had with Ice Palace, I wonder if it makes sense for them to just take the trip and grab the potions at some point.
Yeah, I'm surprised when they turned in their mushrooms that they didn't buy blue potions, to be honest. They each had at least 1 empty bottle at that time. And you're right there. You have all the money in the world. You don't really need money for anything else in the game. Just get your safeties while you're there. Chat having a lovely discussion. Our lovely restreamer, Laoria, or as on Twitch known as Laoria of Light, did roll this seed. It has been a fun one. And I want to say thank you for the seed and for the restream. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to have to see. I mean, what do you think, Garrison? Do you think Misery Mire's the answer, or do you think Turtle Rock is the answer?
I mean, being a creature that inhabits the chat quite often, I'm going to say that Ice Rod is going to be in the front portion of Turtle Rock. And we get Tempered Sword out of Misery Mire. So finally, another sword upgrade, very, very deep into the logic.
You know what? Honestly, since you're full clearing everything, that's at least something. You know, it's not progression or anything like that, but you at least get to sit back and go, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do Master Sword Silverless Ganon at the end of all of this.
I mean, with the amount of game that they've cleared, it would have been really bizarre for them to end up doing Master Sword Silverless by the end of this. You can't do an all dungeon seed, which is what this has become, and end up with a Master Sword Silverless Ganon.
Kaesden doing a nice little tech there to dash through the walls. If you face up at the right angle, and then I believe it's left and dash at the same time, you can dash through that wall there. We'll have to see. Windfox is definitely going to go over to Skullwoods next. I think that's the most obvious play, but it'll be interesting to see if he dives Mire afterwards, because if he doesn't dive Mire, he might catch up a significant amount, but at the same time, won't have Tempered.
Yeah, we'll see though. There's a good chance that there's another sword in Ganon's tower, and given that we have to clear out usually a significant amount of basement to get the big key, I wouldn't be surprised if they find another sword along the path.
He's unfortunately still looking for that second item in Mire. Gonna do the cutscene room over into Vitreous as we creep up on the 2-hour mark. And just to make it clear, these are both really good runners. These are both runners who are 4-1 in the tournament, who have had amazing opponents to play and come out on top. And it's taking them 2 hours to play this seed.
Yeah, and just to do a little bit of recap on how we got here in this seed. So this seed started out with just a little bit of a divergence, but the runners really quickly just kept crossing paths and reconverging. The beginning of this seed, we found gloves on Lumberjack Cave, meaning at some point Aga was required.
You know what, Garrison, I hate to interrupt you, but we have found the Ice Rod.
Oh, that's the most important thing right now. Ice Rod in Mire. This is essentially an all dungeon seed. There's no way that they were doing Mire before any of the other pendant dungeons. Kaesden in go mode, heading to Turtle Rock to clear out this game at 2 hours in.
Yeah, the 2-hour go mode is not something that any runner wants to hear. Kaesden probably feeling like he's behind. Windfox also probably feeling like he's behind. It's just one of those seeds. Look at that tracker. We are missing silvers, a butter sword, and 2 shields from that tracker. And other than that, I believe it is completely filled out.
We're also missing red mail still. Very, very low combat equipment game. The interesting thing about that Turtle Rock, it was a required double dip. So Fire Rod deep in Turtle Rock in Mimic Cave, that Fire Rod leading to Quake in Skullwoods, and that Quake leading to Ice Rod to be able to finish Turtle Rock in Misery Mire. So at least Kaesden knows that with that, Turtle Rock was a required double dip, and he's not going to get burned with the possibility of Ice Rod being in the front here.
You know, Garrison, with you saying how this seed is played off that way, that sounds less like a randomizer seed and like somebody's planned that they put together to mess with people. This seed has been one heck of an annoying seed, not just because of the layout of the items or of the Fire Rod Ice Rod, but a lot of other things too. Having to beat Aga to get the Titan's Mitts, and not knowing where Cape is when it was in Skull Woods for such a long time just drug the game out for a very long time. We're in the final stretches, though, and it does look like Kaesden has a very significant advantage. Windfox does still have to go and do Mire before coming to Turtle Rock.
That does leave me with one question. Did Shireen secretly give them this seed? And we finally found the red mail in the front of Turtle Rock.
Oh my goodness. So we do finally have some health. Again, Kaesden not really having a lot of safeties in terms of potions. Turtle Rock is scary, even on red mail when you have 4 hearts. Does have powder, can get hearts back from the anti-fairies. Definitely safer to have red mail than blue mail. But we'll have to see if that comes into play, you know, him not having any potions other than green potions, I think, at this point.
But at this point, like, the players are choosing to do this without the blue potions. The game has given them everything they need to say, hey, go grab some blue potions, stock up, and the runners are refusing to bite.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, anyways, I think you were going through a recap of this seed.
Oh, yeah. So I was going through a recap of the seed. So in the light world, the biggest development that we found early was that there were gloves on Lumberjack, which typically means that it's an early Aga seed. And we found a very interesting lamp on Library. So we're thinking, okay, Boots early, going to be an Aga seed. And the game turned around and said, nah, here's Hammer and another set of gloves. Go to the Dark World and have all of the Dark World available to you. So what did the runners do? They followed each other's footsteps the entire way. Little bit of crisscrossing here and there, but they made their way through the Dark World basically in a similar path, clearing out the crystals that they could along the way. And then we wound up into this spot where Fire Rod was just hiding from our runners, and as we saw just a few minutes ago, that Fire Rod hiding in Turtle Rock with that required Aga 1 dip being extremely late into the seed, with Cape hiding in Skullwoods.
Chat pointing out, Kaesden beat Aga 1 at 1 hour and 18 minutes. That is how long since the Titans Mitts the runners searched and searched and searched for that Fire Rod in Turtle Rock.
I know, especially from recent experience, when you get into a point in the seed where you're going for 20 minutes to a half an hour with absolutely no progression, you are feeling completely lost and completely destroyed. So neither of these runners feel like they're doing okay. They have to both feel like they're very far behind.
Yeah, to prepare all of our viewers out there, after Kaesden finishes up this laser bridge, which having a little bit of trouble getting that last chest, which is going to have the key in there, we're going to play a little game, and you're not going to have very long to play it.
Yeah, so that game is the Ganon's Tower Big Key guessing game. One thing that we know is that the Ganon's Tower Big Key is somewhere in the basement where there are 22 possible places for that key to be in. And we'll get that started as soon as we see the crystal drop from Trinex.
You know what? I see what Windfox is doing. We know it's not the right call, but this is what I would do in this scenario. I feel like I'm behind. I died in Ice Palace. I can't waste time going to Misery Mire. I have to gamble that it's in Turtle Rock. I like this play. We know it's not the right play, but unfortunately, for the only way that Wind would have caught up after that Ice Rod or Ice Palace death would be this play right here. So I do really like it.
Well, Randomizer has a lot of similarities with poker, and one of the rules in poker is that the correct play is not always necessarily the play that wins the game. So Windfox is doing the correct play. So let's suppose Ice Rod was in Turtle Rock and not in Misery Mire. This is exactly the play that would be getting Windfox back into this game. But as we know, that's not how it really is, and unfortunately, sometimes the right play is the wrong play.
And as Kaesden grabs his 7th crystal, we will begin the GT Big Key guessing game. Go ahead and get your guesses between 1 and 22. Where is that Ganon's Tower Big Key going to be? The winner will receive bragging rights and points on the leaderboard.
So I will say I have never successfully guessed right in a GT Big Key guessing game. By the number, I can't get it right, but by golly, if I say that key is in Vanilla Compass Chest, that's when I'll get it right. So what number do you like to guess, SEJay?
I'm always a big fan of 13, to be perfectly honest.
$13 being in the traditional route, the check before Bob's chest, right?
13 being either way. I always feel like it's whichever route you take, a little bit worse than that. That's how I always feel when I do this.
So far, 3 checks, still nothing yet. But we're early in the basement, and, sometimes maybe you feel like you might want to wait a little bit before actually getting that big key, because maybe you could pull a better sword or silvers before going up the tower.
Yeah, we see 4 as a map, 5 as a small key. As we progress through the room, these lovely red Stalfos are the best enemies. Oh,
there's that sword.
Our butter sword.
I mean, it looks like both players are going to end up with butter sword. We know that that even though Windfox doesn't have tempered yet, he's going to have to go through Mire, unfortunately, for that ice rod. So probably going to pick up tempered in there on the way, and maybe we'll pick up butter sword in the basement. It kind of still depends on what route he takes through Ganon's Tower and where this big key ends up being.
Yeah, I believe we're coming up on key number 9, if I'm counting correctly. Kaesden doing a nice job to bonk over those fireballs or fire snakes. Chest number 9, full heart. So if nothing else, when you have a seed like this where you basically have to full clear the entire thing, you are going to end up, more often than not, pretty well equipped by the end of it.
Yeah, because there's not very many places for equipment to be hiding anymore. Looking at our tracker, really, there's 2 shields left and silvers.
And this is chest number 13, just a small single arrow on its lonesome, or all by its lonesome. We have to go to Bob's chest.
And I'm thinking about it, we didn't get a key in the Hope Room, so unless Windfox does what's called Dark Magician route, he's probably likely going to do the same thing that Kaesden's done, routing through GT. Probably also going to end up getting a pretty late big key.
Yeah, as we come up on number 14, it's definitely going to get beat. Hard to check that. 14 is just some bombs, so we're going to fall down that hole, and time to kill us an Ice Armos.
I know getting silvers behind Ice Armos is a favorite of mine, or of my seeds, anyhow.
I think silvers on any of the bow required areas is always a nice little kick in the knee. And that is
Vanilla
chest number
Big Key.
15.
Chest number 15, Vanilla Big Key.
And now we begin our climb.
Kind of doesn't matter which way you route that basement. It's going to be a pretty long trek regardless.
Congratulations to Xylo Price for guessing 15, and the answer was 15. You've received 18 points on the Go Mode Podcast leaderboard. Congratulations. You know, looking at the leaderboard here, Kaesden is doing a pretty good job of being active outside of his actual races. Second on the leaderboard with 32 points in the GT Big Key guessing game. Pretty good at it.
Much better than I. I mean, I've been doing the Big Key guessing game for the past couple of tournaments now, including the Randomizer League, and I still have yet to guess correctly.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 1 out of 22 gamble, right? So.
But sometimes Randomizer's all about guessing correctly. I guess I'm just in the wrong game.
Yeah, we see Windfox going over towards Cutscene Chest, going to get his Ice Rod now. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of discussion of this in the chat. If you don't kill Aga 1, you can save your portal. And what I mean by that is that if you die in the Dark World and you just quit or continue, don't save and quit or save and continue, your portal will stay where you left it. However, because you killed Aga, anytime you die in the Dark World, you respawn on the mountain, and to get back in the Light World, you have to use a mirror. You cannot save portals after you have defeated Aga 1, unfortunately. We do see Kaesden pretty low on health, gonna grab this fairy here. As Windfox grabs his Ice Rod, he will head to Turtle Rock.
Yeah, Windfox is going to have a much easier route through Turtle Rock now that it's mostly cleared. But unfortunately, at this point, he's just too far behind. And I don't know that there's really anywhere that Kaesden's going to give him a window to get back into this game. And Kaesden making pretty good work of the GT Gauntlet, continuing up towards Aga 2.
Well, Garrison, I gotta ask you. This is, we've been common together for a couple of matches now. Which seed do you like more? This one, or the one where Samaria was required for Ganon's Tower, but not required for any of the crystals?
Well, it's always exciting when you get to a point in the game where the entire tables suddenly turn. You no longer have any idea who is in the lead anymore after being so certain of how the game is going to play out just moments before. So it's kind of hard to top that. But, I mean, this game has been exciting in the sense that it has been a pure execution battle the entire way, with such little divergence. There really hasn't been a lot of room for these runners to really make hurtful decisions other than the dip back into Turtle Rock that Windfox did before Meyer. But even still, just being pure execution, Windfox was still trailing almost the entire game.
Yeah, honestly, that Death and Ice is pretty much the big decider of this seed. Kaesden dying to Chain Chomps was also not great, because could have grabbed the Fire Rod significantly earlier, but died to Chain Chomps, decided to bail on Turtle Rock. This is just one of those seeds where it was rough. You know, to get through the seed, this seed would have a lot of people forfeit, because from what I was able to tell, you pretty much were expected to do Ice Rod with a hammer and a fire sword. Yeah, you could put it off and come back later, but if you wanted to clear the whole thing the first time you were in there, that's kind of what you had to do unless you put it off forever.
And normally as a runner, you would like to see a seed where you could definitely say, hey, that was an execution seed and I won that entirely on execution. But in this race, because of the order in which they found items, both runners probably feel behind just strictly on the ordering of things. So neither of them know how much of an execution seed this was. So neither of them are having fun in this race, I can assure you.
Yeah, I can tell you one thing I do know about Kaesden is Kaesden keeps racetime.gg, the racing platform, closed until he's done racing. He doesn't like it open. All he says it does is distracts him, so he always keeps it closed, which might benefit him in this case that he thinks, oh, my opponent already finished. I can just relax, finish the game. The end.
That's kind of a common thing with the ladder players, which I know Kaesden and Windfox play a lot of ladder. Ladder, at least in the first season, didn't let you know when your opponent finished. Now you can kind of opt in, and there's a lot of like zen in just playing the seed, getting to the end, and not having to worry about where your opponent's at.
Yeah, and we're going to see Kaesden here with the Butter Sword. Going to do some fancy strategies, probably. I know Kaesden is pretty confident in his ability to do triple hits. What that is, and you'll see it coming up here, is in Phase 4 of Ganon, if you're able to shoot the Fire Rod at just the right time and get your spins off at just the right time, you can actually get 3 spins off on Ganon at a time in Phase 4. This makes it to where Phase 4 Silverless is barely slower than Phase 4 with Silvers because both is pretty much a 4 cycle. So we'll have to see if Kaesden is able to pull off those triples as we see Windfox going in to fight Trinex.
And Silver's being somewhere still in Ganon's Tower, that makes complete sense. The only location still available outside of GT being Green Pendant Turn-In on Sahasrahla.
Yeah, neither of the runners were going to finish up Misery Mire after finding that Ice Rod, so we'll never know what's there.
So another thing about Silverless Ganon, this isn't the #1 trick in the Go Mode podcast Tricks to Learn. This is a trick that is extremely important and was voted on by more than 50% of runners as the #1 trick to learn. The way that Silverless Ganon works is normally in Phase 4, if you were to hit Ganon, he would turn blue and be vulnerable to... Oh, and I'll explain that later. Kaesden just finished, and he will be crossing the bridge to the finish line shortly.
Yeah, get your GGs ready in chat for Kaesden. He crosses the bridge, and with an official racetime.gg time of 2 hours and 20 minutes and 31 seconds, Kaesden has won this match to move to 5-1 during the bracket stages of the Mentor Tournament.
What a marathon seed.
Oh. Everyone in chat, make sure you stick around. We're going to get Kaesden in here for an interview. You'll get to hear his perspective on all of the rooms, all of the wonderful, wonderful dips, and all of the logic that he had to go through. So don't go anywhere. We're going to grab him real quick.
And here he is. So GG, Kaesden. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
What a marathon seed.
What a hot garbage. Throw it in the trash can. I'd never want to see that seed again.
Alrighty, you ready to go up?
So Kaesden.
Alright, GG again.
Mimic Cave.
Yeah, Mimic Cave. It's a thing. I thought for sure as soon as I saw that I had lost.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is you went in to check that. You went and died to chain chomps. What made you decide to bail on that versus just dive back in? Because climbing back up the mountain takes a minute.
Go up?
It does, but also going through TR without a fire rod, I was willing to take that gamble. But after I died, I was like, you know what? I still have other things to do. And the chances of that paying off seemed so slim and none.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is you went in to check that. You went and died to change on. So I gotta ask you, to bail on that also, dive back in, when you leave Turtle Rock, have you decided already in your head that that's the last place you're coming back to? Like, are you, if you find Quake, have you already decided I'm going to Mire and I'm doing that no matter what? Turtle Rock is definitely going to be my last check now that I have Fire Rod. Or did you consider diving back in further to Fire or Turtle Rock to see if you could find Ice Rod in it?
I did, and that was a really hard decision for me to make. I figured I already bailed on Turtle Rock, and I just kind of felt I had to commit to saying my go mode is not going to be in Turtle Rock. So I checked some other stuff, and then I went into Mire, hoping it was either going to be on Mire or Green Pendant, and it paid off. It got me a Tempered Sword, which was really nice, and it got me, the Ice Rod.
Yeah, it was one of those tough calls. You and Wind were basically heel and heel. He was right behind you throughout most of the seed. The biggest difference in this seed was Ice Palace and that Cold Stare fight. You had a red potion to survive that fight. Unfortunately, Windfox had used his red potion earlier and took a death there. Outside of that, you guys were toe-to-toe pretty much the entire race.
Yeah, I had a feeling this race was going to come down to an execution battle. Windfox is a really good player, and I was very nervous coming into this, and I knew I had to nail all the fights that I was in to be able to do it. And that Cold Stare fight, that was terrifying. Even with the potion, it was bad.
I mean, this seed absolutely refused to give you offensive equipment for almost the entire time. I think we were talking about 1 hour and 40 minutes in, still being on Fighter Sword.
Yeah, it was. So the early parts of the game, my whole game plan was I'm looking for either a sword or the cape, because I know where the gloves are, the power mitts. And as soon as I find that, I'm going straight to Aga, and that's going to open up the seed for me. It didn't open it up as much as I would have liked, but it did work.
What was going through your mind when you found that cape in Skullwoods?
I thought for sure Windfox found this before me. I don't know if he did or not, but I thought certainly he probably did. And if he did, I probably would have lost. I lost the race already.
The interesting thing is he found it only just a little bit after you. Both of you essentially doing the same checks. The only divergence in checks were crisscrossing a couple areas which had absolutely no progression in them.
Yeah, every time I went to go check something thinking there's got to be something in here, it's just nope, just a lot of nothing. It's just a really frustrating.
Yeah, so early on you had a couple of crystals. You had Eastern and Pod you could do, as well as Swamp and Desert shortly after. And both you and Wind chose to do a lot of overworld checks instead of running straight towards those dungeons. Were you looking for a sword, or what was kind of putting those dungeons off? Because I know that you probably wanted to get those done. Were you just looking for something, or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, I was looking. It's the same thing. I was looking for either a sword or the cape, because I wanted to get Aga done and get the bits so that I could get as many items as possible and potentially go mode some dungeons, which obviously never happened. But that.
So getting away from this insane seed for a little bit, you are now 5-1 at the end of the Swiss round. You're going to be in the top bracket, the Gold Sword bracket. How does it feel?
It feels good, and it's a relief, because I knew if I went 4-2, it's up in the air whether or not you make it or not, and I was just hoping to get a win. But it feels real good. Now I can kind of sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the matches that are coming up this week. I know there's a lot of big ones, and I don't have to really worry about it anymore, because all it's going to affect is this.
Yeah, well, congratulations again to you. Very good race. You guys were very close. Routes were very similar. Whew, at least now you can take that seed, put it, in the dumpster, light that dumpster on fire, and then throw it off a cliff or something along that line.
At a bare minimum, that's what it requires.
I don't know. He might have to go to Mimic Cave again to light it on fire.
Either that, or what I'll do is I'll package the seed up and send it over to Koi, make him play it.
Oh man. See, and that's one of the things that I said earlier. It's like, did Shireen like secretly send you guys this seed?
I when I found that ice rod, and I don't know what happened. I'm sure you caught it when I accidentally mirrored in Turtle Rock. I didn't even intend to do that. But when I was heading over there, it's like I knew it had to be there because I had checks left. I was just like, it can't be there. But at the same time, I knew it had to, because if it wasn't there, I mismarked something, and I was like, well, the fire rod's either here or I'm going to go click forfeit because I've mismarked it and I'm not going through the whole game again.
So speaking of going through Turtle Rock, neither you or Wind opted to use Bombos in any of those rooms to kind of make them a little bit easier. Is there a reason why you chose to do everything Fighter Sword? Bombos, I'm pretty sure, kills those little orange jumping guys. It's just like slipped your mind, or?
You know, I didn't even think of it. I probably should have, and that would have definitely saved me some HP the first time up there going into the chain shop room where I died, and that probably would have saved me a good chunk of time on the seed if I had done that. But yeah, it just slipped my mind. I didn't even think to use it.
Yeah, as the credits finish up, a collection rate of 190 out of 216. That is how grueling this seed was. You had to check just about every chest in the game, but you did. And at the end of the day, you did it first.
A collection rate of 190 just absolutely blows my mind. I mean,
I haven't had a collection rate that high in months. You know, that's back when I would scour the world for silvers before I learned Silverless. That's when I saw a collection rate that high. And usually 170 is a high collection rate, but 190, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, as we have Shireen in the chat now saying that you just love Mimic Cave, and the seed generator knows it was a Mimic Cave seed or Mimic Cave seed. It was a crazy one. Anything you got coming up? Anything going on? Anything you want to say as we watch Windfox kind of finish up GT here?
I'm just going to probably watch him finish it up and just watch him finish the game. I don't have much. I just need to kind of relax after that grind of a seed.
Yeah, if you want to chill for a little bit while Windfox cleans this up, and then we'll bring Windfox in for an interview as well. While Windfox is cleaning this up, I will say we do have another game restream tomorrow at 6 o'clock. A game before Seized and WGarrison. I mean, I don't know why you would want to watch that WGarrison guy play, but for some reason he's playing tomorrow, and it's going to be streamed.
I'll be watching that.
Yeah, good luck to you, Garrison, in your race tomorrow. And it just kind of goes back to, I've mentored in this tournament. Kaesden obviously is a racer. Garrison is a racer as well. A lot of the people you see doing commentary, doing tracking, doing restreams, all of us are just volunteers. We're all just helping out as best we can. So if you like it, make sure you join the Discord. Make sure you say hi to everyone. Jump into some of our pickup races and things like that we do. It's a really fun community. Have a lot of fun with it. Get excited for next week, because after all of the matches this week, we are going to start to see our playoffs take place. But first, tune into Garrison's match tomorrow.
And I would also like to say thank you to our Restreamer, Laoria, and thank you to our tracker, OmegAtoisk. They are also both runners in this tournament as well.
Yeah, we now see Windfox into Phase 3 of Ganon. Going to be finishing that up relatively quickly here. Garrison, are you going to be ready for your match tomorrow after watching this?
Not a chance. But let's be real. Am I ever ready for a match?
I say we let Laoria seed tomorrow.
I think Laoria has joined the not allowed to roll seeds train that I've been put on, and I believe you've been.
I'm on
put
that train too. Oh yeah, I have.
There comes to be a point in which you just have to blame version 31. Like, that's the common thread between all these seeds. Am I right?
You know, I've seen that ever since they rolled out that save and quit fix. Sure does seem like a lot of these seeds are bogus. I'm kidding, of course, but at the end of the day, you can't blame the logic. The logic's just a computer doing things that are technically possible. This one was just a really ugly way to do it.
Windfox shouldn't have too many more spins left to go. As we noticed with Kaesden's Ganon fight, our runners are tearing through this silverless Ganon faster than I can explain the trick. And there we go. Ganon is exploding. Windfox has completed this seed.
Yeah, we'll try to get Windfox in here shortly for an interview and chat with him about his thoughts on this seed. With an official racetime.gg time of 2 hours, 33 minutes, and 48 seconds. Put your GGs in the chat for Windfox. Oh man, that's a seed that I'm glad is over. Yeah, I mentioned in the chat, GG's to Windfox for sticking through that seed. Very easy to get frustrated with that, as we are now joined by Windfox. GG's, what are your thoughts?
That was one of the coolest things I've played.
Yeah, this is by far one of the roughest seeds I think I've ever seen. Just the way that progression was locked, with it being an Aga seed that looked like it should be a Jet seed early to get to Aga, and then those boots being drawn out, and then the cape being drawn out. Just not a nice layout for the items.
That fire rod was in a horrible place.
Yeah, pretty much you and Kaesden both last location that fire rod. I mean, not just the fire rod, there was no swords until Turtle Rock. Like, you guys were on Fighter Sword all the way until then. Really having to show your ability to get through some of these dungeons with minimal equipment. Unfortunately, that Death and Ice Palace did put you behind, but even still, the rest of the seed, managing it with, blue mail and only a Fighter Sword was very well done from both of you.
Yeah, I think I was only one hit away from pulling that last cup in full stare. With the hammer strats and just swung it too early.
One thing that I was kind of surprised about, especially with Kaesden taking the death in Turtle Rock, you, Windfox, taking the death on Cold Stare, neither of you with Flute and 4 bottles decided, and with Turning in Mushroom, decided to pick up extra blue potions at the potion shop.
It's probably just something. I think at that time I still had a green and a red, and I think I had 1 empty bottle.
Yeah, by the time you ended up at Cold Stare, though, I think you were out of the red. And the reason why Kaesden actually made it through that Cold Stare fight was he still had that red potion available.
That makes sense. I remember, I forgot when I used it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I do know that Kaesden definitely gave us a heart attack on that Cold Stare fight with racing to get to the red potion in his menu with exactly half of a heart left.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that Hammer Cold Stare was not a friendly fight at all. no fire rod, fighter sword, just absolutely a miserable fight to have to get through.
I will say, I was a big fan, Windfox, of your gamble to go to Turtle Rock. Did you feel behind at that point and that you just didn't have time to go and dig in Mire and you just had to gamble that Turtle Rock was the play?
Yeah, I fell at least 5 minutes, if not longer, behind.
Yeah, because we were talking, if the Ice Rod had been in Turtle Rock, Kaesden went and cleared Misery Mire first and then went back up. If it had been there, Kaesden was only ahead of you in the actual Turtle Rock by about 2/3 of the dungeon. So it could have easily been anybody's game if the Ice Rod was in there. So I do really like that gamble. Unfortunately, we know now the Ice Rod was in Misery Mire. But I do have to say, feeling behind, just make a call, go for it. I was a big fan of that play.
Yeah, when I found that fire rod there on Mimic Cave, I was like, worst location possible. Because I knew up until that point that was the last possible chest I had available to me besides Misery.
Yeah, and I mean, who really wants to be delving into Turtle Rock to find the fire rod when you don't have fire rod and you don't have ice rod and you're still on fighter sword? Like, Turtle Rock's the last location you want to be, and as I suggested, it was the last location for both of you.
Well, when I knew going in Fighter Sword, I was like, it's either progression on that first chest, or it's going to give me a key, and I'm going to be stuck fighting Pokies.
Yeah, and those pokies with the fighter sword was what gave Kaesden a problem the first time he dipped in there. He actually started dipping into Turtle Rock significantly earlier, but that first pokey gave him a lot of trouble and brought him low enough that the chain chomps finished him off, and he bailed as soon as that happened. So I know that you and Kaesden end up in a lot of practice races with each other on the Go Mode podcast Discord. Did this race have any special meaning between the two of you?
Well, before the race MGG came up and all the races on GMP, we had actually raced a few times in the ladder. We pretty much go back and forth a lot on our races, so we knew it was going to be a close race from beginning to end. We're pretty even when we play each other, so we knew he had a slight execution lead up. So yeah, that slight execution meant I was hoping for more of a all dungeons troll seed, and he left.
I mean, we did get that.
We very much did. It, just
It was just an awful seed.
I mean,
we just happened to last location the entire.
Oh yeah, you last location multiple items, and the strange thing is, if you guys go back and you watch this cast, like you guys continually synced up over and over again, and it made this seed look way more linear than it really was. Just constantly following each other's footsteps over and over again. It was interesting, and it really came down to an execution battle.
Yeah, when I found out how trolly the seed actually was, and where I found the fire rod, I knew pretty much at that point I was going to lose because it came down to execution, and he beats me in execution. So that's pretty much when I started conceding.
I mean, in this seed, he wasn't leading you by much up until the cold stare fight. The cold stare fight was really what did it. But prior to that, I mean, we're talking about maybe 30 seconds difference the entire seed.
Yeah, and as we see your credits finish up here, collection rate of 188. So both runners, collection rate insanely high. This was a ridiculous seed. I'll give a second. Do Kaesden, Windfox, any thoughts on this seed that you still want to share, or anything coming up that you want to share before we close this thing out?
I just want to say GG to Windfox. I felt so behind that whole seed, and I actually had to tab over to Restream a couple times through that, thinking there's no way this isn't over yet. I thought for sure you had probably gone to Skullwoods first, found the cape, and were just light years ahead of me. I also want to say thanks to Garrison and SEJay for, commentating, Omega for tracking, Laoria for doing Restream. It's been a lot of
Yeah, definitely thanks to the whole crew, Laoria, SEJay, Garrison, and Omega for everything you guys do and put this restream together. And yeah, I felt behind once it hit. But I know for a fact after we sign off, I know Kaesden and I are going to talk some more about the seed, about more specific.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that was a fun one. Thanks to both of our runners for letting us restream you. Garrison, any last thoughts?
I just wanted to say thank you to the runners. I knew as soon as I saw this game up there, this was one that I absolutely had to cast. It was absolutely as exciting as I thought it would be. And I would like to thank all of our viewers, too, in our Go Mode podcast channel. Thanks for being with us as we went through this seed. And have a great night, all of you folks.
Yeah, for Garrison, Laoria, Omega, all of our runners, all of our viewers, thank you very much. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the restream matches. And wherever you are, have a good evening, morning, night. We'll see you next time.